Hi, I'm DJ, and here with me today is Yngwie Malmsteen. So, I'm really excited to speak to you. I know you have a solo album coming up. And from what I've heard about your process, it was very, very abstract. Now that all the songs are put together, what do you think that the album is trying to do?
Well, I mean, I've always been a composer, and I've always been, even in situations where I was actually in quote-unquote bands, I was always the writer and I was the composer. So this is nothing new to me, really. I've done this all my life.
Mm-hmm.
I write and compose for every instrument, not only the guitar. I write for all the parts, and I sing everything and so on. So basically, it's not new to me to do this.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that was different this time around was the fact that I didn't do any touring because of COVID. But other than that, it was, I had a little more time, I can say,
Mm-hmm. So, I know that 4 of the songs do include vocals, and I'm not exactly a songwriter, I've dabbled in it, but it just feels such a strange process to me. How do you know if a song should even include vocals in the first place?
It tells itself. It tells the way it comes across, the way it develops. It happens. I don't even consider. There's been times when I've been kind of like thinking, should I play it on the guitar? Should I sing it? But it's most of the time it's pretty natural. It doesn't. I mean, also to remind you that in the songs where I sing, there's also a lot of instrumental passages in them as well. So they become instrumentals as well. It's not like they're not that different from each other. It's just that there's verses and choruses included in the process. You have to hear. You have to hear the stuff to understand what I'm talking about. I can't really put music into words. You know what I mean?
That's fair. And I guess, leading into that, I'm also a former musical student, and something that was sort of instilled to me, and maybe this is because of the music that I was learning, I was told that music is a sort of math in which you can kind of, obviously, there's new ways to put things together, but on some level, once you put it together, there's only a few ways that it can go. How do you feel about that thing, about that idea?
It's 100%. It's 100% mathematical. Do you know who invented the musical scale?
I guess, for the listeners, who invented the musical scale?
A mathematician, a Greek mathematician called Pythagoras.
Mm-hmm.
He invented the musical scale when he realized there was in the middle of a string, there was a harmony, the harmonic, which is an octave higher. So he said that's what he meant. That in between those, he decided to put 12 notes.
Mm-hmm.
This is 12 hours and 12 months. And that was it's a mathematician. So all musical theory and all musical harmony, everything is in numbers. You have a second, your third, your fourth, your fifth, so on. Everything is mathematics. So if you want to look at it that way, you can. It's just that I kind of found that out after I learned what sounds good, and basically it's all very clear to you once you realize that a third harmony sounds really good, and so on.
So do you ever feel that math inside of you when you're doing it, or is it like an instinct?
No, it's 100% instinct.
Mm-hmm.
I'm completely aware of what I'm doing. I mean, I could give you a full analysis of everything that I'm doing. But when I compose, when I improvise, when I actually perform, I never think in those terms. It's very, very, very hardwired into me. I don't have to. I've been making music for a long time.
So, can you point to anywhere about where your, I guess these instincts come from in terms of inspirations or maybe teachers? Where does this musical? Where do your musical leanings come from?
Yeah. Okay. So the music. All right. So the great composers, Johann Sebastian Bach, and Vivaldi, and Paganini, and Beethoven, and so on. They were improvisers, which I know very many I grew up in a classically trained family, and it was very strange because none of these people improvised music. They only played what was on their paper, yeah?
Right.
Whereas the original composers, they were improvisers. So when you improvise, you're actually composing.
Mm-hmm.
Because improvisation is a genesis of the So when you improvise, out of the improvisation, something will surface, like a theme or a melody or something, and you take that and you build on that.
Mm-hmm.
So the actual inspiration and the actual magic that happens, that could be anytime, anywhere. It could be a sound check. It could be in front of TV. It could be, and it could be even without me even having the guitar in my hands. I just hear the music in my head.
Mm-hmm.
So these things are very elusive, and you never know when it's going to happen. I had the luxury on this album to actually capture what I call the magic, and just use the takes and the lines and stuff that I felt were very inspired,
Right.
So that everything, for instance, if you listen to my solos, they're all improvised. They're not written out. The parts are written, some parts are written out, but the solos per se, are improvised. So my way of making music is improvisation, and from the improvisation, compositions emerge. So, and this could be something I could do on command if I wanted to, or if you asked me to do that, I can do that. But to me, that's not the real magic. The real magic is when it comes from nowhere. You don't even know where it comes from,
Mm-hmm. It's very funny how you mention the classical aspects, because I do know that you took some references from Paganini for this album. And I know that some people, when they listen, like, oh, classical music and like this sort of like heavy music, how does that reconcile? And I guess like, how does that reconcile? How do you feel that reconciles?
Well, okay, so when I was very, very young, I was 5 years old. I got my first guitar. I was youngest in the family. All my older siblings were musicians. They were violinists and pianists and flautists and singers, and my uncles and aunts were opera singers. And everybody was a musician. But I wasn't. I guess I was. They wanted me to be also. So they gave me guitar on my 5th birthday, a trumpet on my 6th birthday, and so on, piano lessons and all this stuff. But it wasn't until I saw Hendrix smashing a guitar on TV, and when I was 7, I saw Hendrix smashing the guitar up. That's when I said, I'm gonna play guitar. So I took the guitar from the wall. I had a guitar already. So this was September 18th, 1970, the day he died.
Mm-hmm.
And so I loved the hard sound, like a rock and roll, distorted guitars and heavy drums and stuff like that. I loved the sound of that, But once I realized that everything in rock and roll is built on a pentatonic scale, which is 5 notes in a 12-note octave, it's very limited. It's only 5 notes. I decided, I heard, inadvertently, I heard Baroque classical music and Vivaldi and Tchaikovsky, stuff like this. And I said, wow, that sounds really interesting, and that's really hard to pick up, fast. So I started learning how to use some of the linear notes and arpeggios and stuff in classical Baroque music. But I played it through Marshall stacks with stats, and I threw the guitars in the air, and I used smoke bombs and double bass drum sets and stuff. So I took both of the things that I loved, and I made it into what is my style. It's known as neoclassical metal. So that's what they call it, but I never thought of it that way. But so it's a long process, because I actually wrote a book about this. It's called Relentless. I wrote full books, memoirs. The name of the book is Relentless. You can get it on Amazon, and it reflects everything on how all this happened. How the influences came in, and this is this is many, many, many years ago. I mean, I lived in the States almost 40 years already. So I'm I've been here for a long time. So I've been recording artists for many years. So this is nothing new to me. I'm just trying to explain to you how it started, how the genesis of it.
You just mentioned your shaky terms of describing your music as neoclassical. Do you want to put a label on your music? Well, and so, if so, what is it?
Of course not. No, there's labels are silly. But I can tell you this. Way back in the 70s, when I was playing, I started when I was a little kid. I was like in my 8, 9, 10 years old. And when I started playing, putting bands together and stuff. And so I remember I found an old cassette from very many years ago, and I'd written on it, heavy symphonic metal rock. I've written on it, heavy symphonic metal rock. And this was crazy, because there was no such thing, even in those days, what existed. So, but again, no, I think labels on music is kind of silly, but I guess you have to have some of them, This is jazz, this is freeform jazz, this is bebop jazz, or this is Baroque classical, this is romantic classical, and so on. But it gets a little silly, They have all these terms. I think, I never think of those terms. I just make music, But you would have to describe my music as very, very baroque, classical influenced metal, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You've also mentioned how when you were young, you also were, I guess, pointed towards other instruments like piano and trumpet. Do you consider guitar like your quote unquote one instrument, or do you feel like you just like dabbling in all of them?
No, I'm mainly a guitar player, obviously, but I play everything. I play every instrument on this new album. I sing everything. I sing lead vocals, and backing vocals. I sing everything, and I play everything. So I'm also a drummer. I play all the bass and all the records. I can play a lot of different instruments, but obviously when I go on stage, that guitar and vocals. That's what I do.
But when you're playing another instrument that isn't guitar, do you ever think of yourself, or do you ever find yourself thinking, man, I could be playing guitar right now? Or do you genuinely enjoy playing those other instruments?
I never really thought about that. I play a lot of bass because I do all the bass parts on all the records. Every one I've done. I'm all my solo albums. And I enjoy that, actually. I enjoy playing the bass and drums, and I play the keyboards, and I sing, and I play guitar. Mm-hmm. But obviously, my main instrument that I'm known for is the guitar.
Right. So I think it's pretty obvious to the listeners and me right now that you've been playing music for a very, very long time, and a lot of it is very improv-based. But something that as someone that is a very, very amateur songwriter, do you ever feel like you're retreading the same ground in terms of your music, and how do you prevent this?
No, I don't, because the way I see this, okay, so there's some artists wants to, almost like be trendy in a way, some of the one great artist that I actually happen to love, David Bowie. He was amazing, but he was a typical kind of like, he would not follow, but find himself going in different directions and so on. Mm-hmm. And that's fine. But then you have other people like AC/DC and ZZ Top and, whatever, Eric Clapton, you name it, that's done the same thing forever, which is what they do, and they do it better than anybody else. So the way I see myself is somebody who's playing music from the soul, basically. I don't try to play something. I don't try to write something. I don't try to be something that I'm not, what you hear on this new album is exactly what I'm about. That's what I do. I don't try to follow something. I don't try to angle it one way or another. I don't try to, this direction. No, I don't. This is art. It's like being a painter or an author or something. You lock yourself into a room and something comes out of you. Something comes out of you, completely independent of the outside. And I don't follow, and I don't listen to anything. I don't follow anything. I don't listen to. The only thing that I do when I make music is to basically to make sure it's undiluted. I don't want to dilute or distract the art that comes from within, basically. I'm very artistic and very, spiritual almost in that sense, because it's all like it comes from me, it comes from inside, but maybe from somewhere else first. I don't know. I just know that, I don't try to be something I'm not. I'm just doing what I'm doing. And that's nothing to do with, did you listen to what they did, on the radio? No, I don't. I can't. I couldn't care less. I only live once, and I'm going to make the music that I mean. The music that I mean. Mm-hmm. I not follow something, and I don't try to be something I'm not. So, no, I don't ever think in those terms, because, like I said to many, I do 6-7 interviews a day. So I forget what I said to who. But for instance, if you ask me to write a country and western song, I can do it right now. How long do you want to be? 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes? Do you want 2 choruses and 1 chorus? Which bridge do you want? Mm-hmm. I can write your death metal song. I can write your reggae song. I can write any piece of music that you want. My knowledge of music is that complete. I can write anything in any style. I can play any kind of guitar solo. I can play slide, whatever you want. I can do that. I have an extremely wide palette of knowledge when it comes to music. But the music that I put out, the music that I make with my name on it, is from my soul. And I mean that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and especially this new one, because it's so undiluted. There's no distraction on this. There's no compromise. There's nothing. This is just what I create. And, you know, people can love it. People can hate it. That's secondary to me. What's most important thing is that this is real. It's the real thing. And it's the only thing that I wanted. I don't want anything else. That's a long answer.
Yeah. So how do you get to that point as an artist where everything that comes from you can just think of like right on the spot? Is that like practice? Is that reading up on musical structures and history and knowing everything about the genre? How do you get to the point where you can just feel it in your heart basically and then make the music?
But I think it means maybe misunderstood what I was saying. First of all, the knowledge of music, knowledge of stylistic things and so on like that, it comes from doing it for a long time. There's a couple of things involved with that. You know, some people can do it for a long time and they still don't get it. Some people can do it for a short time and they can get it right away. You know, like my son, for instance, is extremely, you know, talented. He's enormous talent. But he doesn't spend that much time on it. He's just really good. And then there's other kids that spend a lot of time, they're not quite that good. So I'm not talking just because he's my son. I'm saying as an example. Now, so obviously some people are talented at certain things and some people have more or less of it, you know. So it is that, and it's your experience and knowledge of actual musical structure and so on, and the ability to do whatever you want to do on the instrument. So there's a lot of factors. And these things don't come like you can't really learn it. You know, it's either within you or it doesn't. It isn't. As far as I'm concerned, that's kind of like it's something that just is there or it isn't. You know, of course you can learn a lot of things. You can learn how to read and write and all that stuff, but not, you know. So it's harder. Like I never really think in these terms, like where it's that you know picked apart. What I meant to say was that if I wanted to, or if you asked me to, I could write anything you want right now. But I don't do my music that way because I wait for something to come to me. I wait for a magical moment, basically, where a theme or a riff or a melody or an arpeggio or some sort of like a little arrangement just comes to me, and I capture that. I capture that, and now it's mine. You see what I mean? Whereas I can push a button and I can do it on demand, which that's not how I like to do it. What I meant by that is that's exactly how I don't do it. When I compose my stuff that I consider being best stuff that I've done, is something that came out of spontaneous moments, you know? See what I mean?
Yes.
That what I was trying to point out was a difference on how I make it. But yet, I could do it on demand. I could do it, but I don't like to do that because to me that leaves me cold. That doesn't give me passion. It's not passionate, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I meant to say.
Something that I also found really, really interesting about your formulation of this album is that you've said that this is like one piece that you should listen to all the way through, not putting it on shuffle. What exactly gets lost when you put an album on shuffle?
Oh, a lot. I put a lot of thought into the sequence of the record because the sequence has to open certain way and then lead into something else, and the mood and the key and the tempo has to be a flow. It has to have a flow to it, and they all complement each other. So coming out of a very, very intense instrumental piece, you go into a ballad. Out of the ballad, you go into another instrumental piece, and so on. And then after a very more complex thing, you go into a more direct thing. So it's very, very, very serious thought that goes into the order of the songs. Absolutely, yes. And also how the songs complement each other. So you can't just take one off. It's like going to the movies. Okay, I saw the first scene. I'm done now. Then you go out and buy some popcorn. You go out, you go inside. You see another scene that might be completely, you know, in a different framework of the story or whatever. You go outside again and go to the bathroom or whatever. No, you have to see the movie from start to finish, or read the book from start to finish to get the full understanding of it. That's how I make records.
Mm-hmm. Thank you again for your time. I had a very interesting conversation with you today. I do have one last question for you, though, and it's...
Okay.
If there was a jukebox musical starring your music, what would that musical be about?
Oh, you mean like a Broadway show?
Like a Broadway show where the songs are made with the tunes of your melodies. What would that musical be about?
That's a really good question. I never thought about that. Huh. I probably would have to listen to what some other people thought about that. I never really gave much thought, you know what I mean? But that would be an interesting thing to do, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Thank you again for taking the time to speak with me today. I really appreciate
you.
your insight on all of this.
Thank you. Very good. My pleasure.